Hi, this is Chris Foreman from Madness, and you're listening to the Stateside Madness podcast.
Hi there, folks out there. I'd like you to meet Tommy McGuire and his combo.
Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, the one and only podcast of the official Madness American fan service. I'm Laurie, along with my co-host Polly, here to bring you news, reviews, and deep dives into the nutty sound of the British pop band Madness. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast. I'm Laurie.
And I'm Polly.
And this is episode 30. We're going to talk about Wee Wee CC Ya Ya Da Da.
Wee wee CC ya ya da da. Wee wee CC ya ya da da.
That we are one of the later Madness albums, but I'm going to go ahead and say a pretty good one. But before that, let's get on to the communicator.
All right, well, the big news is happy birthday to Lee J. Thompson, who turned 64 on Tuesday, October 5th.
Happy birthday. I'm sorry, I didn't get him anything.
I'm sure he can shoplift something.
Sure.
And we did get a message about our previous episode from Robert in Birmingham, who said, I thought the Louis Vaz episode was one of the best so far. Really enjoyed it. Well, thanks, Robert. We enjoyed it too. And thank you again to Louis, who was just such an amazing storyteller.
That he is. Yeah, just wind him up and let that man go. He really went at it. Made our jobs rather easy.
Yeah. Thank you again, Louis. We appreciate you.
Chris, what time is it?
Showtime!
All right, so here we go with our album deep dive. Wee Wee CC Ya Ya Da Da.
Wee wee CC ya ya da da. Wee wee CC ya ya da da.
That was the album that they released in 2012. Now, at this time, Mark Bedford was on hiatus from the band, so he doesn't appear on this album. On bass, we have Graham Bush, aka Bushers. The album cover was designed by the legendary Sir Peter Blake. Now, he's best known, I think, for the Sgt. Pepper's album cover, yeah?
That he is, yeah. And, Suggs had said and something I saw recently, that the design of the album cover, one, they felt a little slighted because so much work went into Sgt. Pepper's and they got that on a legal pad. But I guess they had asked Peter Blake to do it, and they kept changing the name. They couldn't decide on anything, and so the album cover was inspired by the fact that he had to keep crossing it out and starting over again.
Yeah, you can see the original album titles that were considered on this album cover. So a number of different album titles were considered: The 10 Commandments, Doolally, Dial M for Madness, Man of Steel, Circus Freaks, and The Rake's Progress. Now, Polly, you and I were talking before we started recording, and you mentioned that you had the special edition of this album. And the special edition, I believe, is the one that has a different cover, which was also done by Sir Peter Blake. And that actually has characters based on these different titles. So, for example, there's one of the band members dressed as the Man of Steel. And then there's another one where you can see the Circus Freak. So if Suggs was feeling a little bit ripped off, or if he was feeling a little bit neglected, I guess, then Sir Peter more than made up for it with that special edition cover. Yeah.
That he did. Although I'm going to say they should be putting out a new album, and Dial M for Madness is a fantastic album title.
Well, that was God, what was there was a film, Dial M for Murder, right? Was that a Hitchcock film?
Actually, no, I think that's an Agatha Christie title, isn't it?
Oh, it might be. It might be. And you know, I should know that because like I've read every single Agatha Christie book that's out there. I should know that.
So the album debuted at number 10 in the UK album charts on the 4th of November in 2012. It never charted in the US, neither did any of the singles, although in the UK it did eventually reach gold status. What makes this album differ from many of the previous albums is that there were, in fact, 5 different producers, and more or less all, devoting their attention to one or a couple of the tracks. Also notable, this sort of marks at about the beginning, or at least in earnest, the inclusion of strings on many of the tracks. So in there, you'll hear cello, violin, and even a harp. All right, so let's get into the tracks. And starting first, it's a Monsieur Barzo composition. It is My Girl Too.
Lately, I've been wondering about you and the things you do. I'm in love, but you drive me mad, be so sad to be losing you. Last night, when we had that fight in your car, left me at the bar, then I see her talking to her friends, acting like she just don't care. She has flair, and how she moves with such grace, like she owned the space. She's so fine, she looks so cool, got no time, nobody's fool. My girl, she don't read books. My girl, she gives dirty looks. I'm going to be what she want me to be. I'm her man doing all.
So Laurie, give me your thoughts on that. We've talked about this one a little bit before, but what are you thinking?
No, sir, I didn't like it.
You don't? Now, I don't recall that from our previous conversations. What do you got against it?
I think it's kind of lazy. I mean, even just calling the song My Girl Too, which implies a sequel, but it's not. It's an entirely different girl. What he's describing, I don't see the appeal. My girl don't read books. That's a deal breaker for me. You don't read books. I don't care for the melody. I don't care for the beginning. That we see ya ya da. I don't.
We see ya ya da. We see ya ya da.
That drives me insane. Yeah, we're not off to a great start here. What do you think of this one, Polly?
Well, Laurie, here's where we part ways. I actually think it's one of the stronger tracks on the album. We've gone over before what I like about a Madness song. So it does have that upbeat, fun aspect to it. I like the structure of the song. And I think we've talked about it before, where I've pointed out that it's got same chord progression as the Sesame Street theme song. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's something subliminal going on with me. But also, I like the idea, even if it falls a little bit short, like you said, in terms of it being a continuation of the original My Girl song, which I'll give it to you. I don't think it does continue it that particularly well. I really thought you might go for it based on the idea that this guy is pining something wicked, and he is throwing on the accolades about this woman. So I think it's charming. I think it's endearing, and yeah, I like it. I love how they use the Bob Fosse video, and the first time I'd actually seen that was watching the band in Wales, and that came on the big screen behind them, and the whole time I was saying, holy shit, how did they actually choreograph some 60s, late 60s-ish looking dance scene with the photography even matching the 60s, some peculiar half balding guy with a big ginger mustache in it. I'm kind of like, this does not look like a modern video. How did they make it fit so perfectly? And it was fantastic. I thought it was incredible.
And see, the video is another thing that I kind of thought was lazy. It's just they're taking found footage and we're using that.
But the timing is flawless on it. I think it's great.
I'll give you that. And actually, Nick Egan, who's a video producer, he's done videos for like Duran Duran, Alanis Morissette, a few other things. He recently just did a video for an artist named Merchant, and it has that same kind of idea where he's got the choreography and the found footage, and he's putting it together to make this video with this found footage. And I think Madness beat him to it. Madness did it first. So Polly, as you mentioned, there's 5 different producers on this album. So My Girl 2 was actually produced by Liam Watson. And it was the first official single released off of the album. The single was released September 30th, 2012. So we had an anniversary just a few days ago. It was also released download only. So, we had mentioned in previous episodes where the band, by creating their own label, they kind of could control their own songs and their own releases. And one of the things that I guess came with that is the idea that they could release their own singles. And since they did download only, they didn't have to do a B-side.
Yes, consequently, it made charting that much more difficult. In 2012, it wasn't quite as easy for the tracking companies to know who's downloading and who's purchasing and how to really figure out that metric. So it's not surprising that the singles didn't chart.
Okay, so next up, we have another Mike Barson composition produced by Stephen Street. This song is called Never Knew Your Name. Let's listen.
Well, I thought you were nice, I even told you so, but you smiled so shyly and said to me, I bet you say that to all the girls you meet, but it isn't so. Yes, the club was closing, so we had to leave. We walked out together, just a little at ease. I would have liked to have walked you home, but you said you'd catch the bus, so I ended up alone. I never knew your name, nor your telephone number. Will I ever see you again? I wonder.
Okay, so that was the second single off of the album, also released as a download only, January 2013. Polly, how do you like this one, Never Knew Your Name?
I guess I'd say I'm all right with it. It's a bit of a departure for the band. And of course, it's got very much the same structure and tempo as the Gloria Gaynor song, I Will Survive. So, it's just kind of not my thing that much. So, I think it was an honest effort, but just generally not one of my favorites.
And of course, you and I are going to disagree on this one too. I really like this one. It's because it does have that kind of a disco vibe. I mean, it really reminds me of a lot of the music that I used to hear on my little purple transistor radio in the late 70s, And I like the fact that it includes a full string section. It's got the cello, the harp, the violas, the violins. It is a departure. You're absolutely right. It is light years away from the ska stuff that we heard in the late 70s. But I really like it. So there.
I'll have to live with it. Third up, then, we've got a Suggs and Chrissy Boy composition. It's La Luna.
faces I remember from the moment I was born. From Battersea to Birmingham, memories forlorn. Just faint wafts of nostalgia blowing gently on the breeze. I sit among the evergreen of all I have received. Estrellas y la luna, the rays are breaking through. Out come the twinkling stars shining down on you. Well, I'm in and out the window.
So, Laurie, let's hear it. What's your take? How are we going to disagree on this one, Laurie?
Oh, well, this one has a special place in my heart because it is co-produced by John Avila from one of my favorite bands, Oingo Boingo, one of my all-time favorite bands. And John also arranged the mariachi, trumpet, the strings, and the vocals. And you can really hear his influence on this, right? You know, John Avila being, you know, Mexican-American, that kind of mariachi sound. I dig this one. What do you think?
I think it's actually, you know, probably my second or third favorite on the album. Quite obvious, the mariachi intro, but then it switches from mariachi sound into a tango time signature, and then it still brings in mariachi horns throughout the song too. For northern or type folks like us, we might not be familiar with either mariachi or tango, but generally speaking, there is a bit of a firewall between those two types of music. They're not always paired together. So I found that was pretty interesting how they did that. But leave it to somebody like Madness, you know, who's also probably, you know, a little unfamiliar with it. They had a grain of an idea. They went with it, and you got this just fantastic sounding song. Yeah, I really like it.
Okay, so we do agree on this one then, huh? Yeah.
Okay. It's
So
still early.
all right, we'll see what happens. Yeah, anything can happen at this point. We're only on the third track. So I mentioned John Avila. The other producer on this track was Charlie Andrew, by the way. Our next song on the album is How Can I Tell You? It was written by Suggs and Carl and produced by Stephen Street. Let's listen.
Communication is a skill you must acquire. It will help you through your life. It is essential. You have to walk into this world with your head held high. Be fluid, child. Don't become crystalline. You're gonna have to swim with the molecules. How can I tell you? You have to open up your heart. How can I tell you? Be honest from the very start. How I feel. Make a stand for what is true. Try to be decent in all that you do. How can I tell you? You got to get support. How can I tell you? A little effort and a lot more. How I feel. Check the wonder in all that you see.
Holly, how can I tell you?
I don't know. Yeah, I like the song. I think it falls safely in the spectrum of stuff that is classified as the Madness type song. Yeah, it was fairly playful. I think I probably said before, I'm sure I said it before, I don't tend to dwell a great deal on lyrics or meanings of songs, but I always get the sense this was a father talking to his child kind of thing.
Communication is a skill you must acquire. It is essential. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think so too. I like it a lot. I think that's one of the endearing qualities that it has. You know, the first time I heard it, you know, that introduction, communication is a skill you must acquire. I'm thinking, what is this? You know, motivational speaker. But I got to tell you, it really grew on me very quickly. I've also seen some footage from live shows where the crowd really gets into this one a lot. It's a fun song and it's catchy, and it's one of those that, and you might have heard me earlier, Polly, I was singing it. I couldn't get it out of my head. It's going to be stuck in my head for the next day or two now. So I like this one. And this was the third single off the album. It was released April 8th, 2013.
All right, so the fifth song on the album, it's Kitchen Floor, and it's a composition by Woody and friend of the show, his brother, Nick Woodgate. Let's take a listen.
On the kitchen floor, hanging on the bathroom door. You know what I'm living for, 'cause I've got you.
Now, Laurie, I do believe we've talked about this before. I do believe I know what you're thinking, but let's let the listeners know. How do you like it?
Oh, it's very naughty. It's very naughty. I think the first time I heard this, I think I blushed a little bit, to be honest. Of course, I mean, I was in my office with other faculty. I enjoy this song a lot, though. I enjoy this song. I think it's one of the stronger tracks on the album, actually. How about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's one of the stronger tracks on the album. I don't want to keep saying that. I think we might get in a little bit of trouble because there's still many more songs to go. And you can't say it's one of the stronger tracks on the album about more than half of them, I wouldn't think. But I do like the song. And again, a little bit of a departure from what we expect from our boys. I definitely like it a lot. And knowing and having become friendly with Nick doesn't hurt that at all. I think I might even appreciate it a little bit more. Such a sweet guy.
I think that's true of me too. I think now that we've met him, we've spoken with him. I think I do appreciate his songwriting a little bit more. So the producer on this one was Owen Morris. And why do I know that name, Polly? That name is sounding familiar. What is he? Who is he? Do you know?
That was the large orange cat from the 9 Lives commercial.
I see. Moving on. All right, next up we have Carl wrote this one. This is a song called Misery, also produced by Owen Morris.
Company, that's what the wise man said. Don't come to me for sympathy if you can't raise your head. Stand up and see what your life could be if you wore a smile instead. If you keep misery as your company, then you might as well be dead. Why don't you go and suck on a silver spoon?
So that was Misery. Polly, how do you like Misery?
Well, I do like it a great deal. It's got that sing-song quality, and just a couple of listens, you can probably learn all the words. It doesn't hurt that it's Chaz wrote it, and I think it's got a bit of that Irish sensibility to it. It's fairly folky, but it's upbeat. There's not a lot to dislike about it.
No, I still dislike it.
What?
I don't like it. It's childish. It sounds like a playground taunt, go suck on a silver spoon. I can do without this one. Although I will say this much, I do really like the video. The video looks like it was done probably in Adobe Flash. That's my best guess. I mean, the computer animation. And I actually used to do that for many years. I used to work in Adobe Flash. So I really appreciate what went into the video, and I really enjoy the video. But yeah, the song, no, not feeling it. Sorry.
And again at number, sorry, slipped into a little bit of Casey Kasem there. And again at number 7, it's seventh song on the album, it is Leon. And again, it's a composition by Woody and Nick Woodgate. Let's take a listen.
Looks across the fields that lie across the playground. Dreams of life beyond the gates and far from this town. Trapped inside a room with boring little children. Leon dreams of life outside his hollow building. He is stuck inside his head and in a world. It feels like running out and owning all the world. Bleaching corridors and cold and drafty windows.
All right, Laurie. So here we have Leon. It was produced by Charlie Andrew. Another one, very heavy on the string section. What are your thoughts about it?
This is a good one. I like this one. Lyrically, subject matter wise, it kind of harkens back to Primrose Hill. You know, the idea, Primrose Hill was, we have a guy who's, you know, agoraphobic. I don't know if we have the same character in Leon, but there's definitely some similarities, you know what I mean? Where he's a bit of an outcast, maybe not really comfortable around people, not comfortable in his own skin. And I like that as a subject matter. And, you know, musically, I think it's a good song too. How about you?
I do love this song, actually. And yes, there's no doubt there some similarities to Primrose Hill there. I even wondered whether it might be about even a younger person, perhaps even a child, and it's just his miserable existence rather than, you know, an adult maybe with agoraphobia. But, you know, again, with a song like this, I think I'm going to tune in a little bit more to the music and the melody than the lyrics. So nobody write to us about that saying I got it all wrong.
Well, if anybody's going to write to us, it's going to be Nick.
That's right, probably.
And you know, I wonder maybe if a little bit of this song might not be semi-autobiographical for Nick. I mean, because when he chatted with us, one of the things that he told us is that he is agoraphobic. And that was part of the reason why he had such a hard time touring, for example. So, you know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think that anytime you're creating art, whether it's, you know, visual arts or whether it's a song or whatever, you do put a little bit of yourself into it. So I wonder, you know, if that's not the case here, if maybe there's not a little bit of Nick and Leon.
That it could be.
Okay, so next up we have Circus Freaks. That was at one time the working title of the album, written by Lee and by Woody. Here it comes.
Our connections are sugar sweet, so strap up, take it all in your stride. Oh, can't anybody help us? Why should anybody care? Cut fronts are going in for the kill, bumbling faces snapping at our heels. We may appear like circus freaks, juggling with all we have able, but at the end of the day, our cards upon the table, nothing left concealed. Oh, will be revealed.
Holly, talk to me about Circus Freaks.
Well, I do like it. A bit somber, I think, comparatively to some of the other tracks. There's that calliope type of intro to it. So they're establishing a theme, and it kind of does run throughout the song. But yeah, I think it's a bit of maybe based about relationship anxiety or things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a solid effort. There you go. I got nothing else.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Yeah, so that was another one that was produced by Owen Morris.
We have another Jazz Smash composition, the 9th song on the album. It is So Alive.
When I first saw you, I knew them from the start. You were the one I've been waiting for, the one who had my heart. I saw it in your eyes, girl, then I realized it's you. You put back passion in my day, you lift my life. You woke me up, my darling, every single night. I feel this fire inside, and I know the cause of it is you. I've always known that it was written in the stars. For you I'll ever fight or die. Since I met you, girl, there's no confusion in my mind. I'll tell you why. You make me feel so alive.
So Alive. Another one produced by Owen Morris. Laurie, what are your thoughts on it?
I could take it or leave it. I mean, it's okay. I wish it had been like Love and Rockets So Alive. You know what I mean? I wish they'd done that one. That would have been just amazing. I think this is one of those, and I'm going to say this on a number of tracks, where it's not that it is a bad song. It is just that it does not rise to the level that I expect from Madness. I think if somebody else had done this, I think it might have been a better song. But because we've come to expect so much from Madness, this one just doesn't quite rise to my expectations. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's good in one respect, I feel, in that it is, an upbeat, jaunty ska tune that Madness does so well. But then on the other hand, it's also fairly standard, as though if you were to say, jaunty, upbeat Madness song and throw it into some computer algorithm, it would probably spit out something like this.
I think you just hit on something there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very sweet song, so it's very much, like words that you would have had, written on a Valentine card or something like that. So in that aspect, it's a little bit different for Madness. But yeah, instrumentally and song structure wise, writing wise, it's very, very plain, reliable. It's a Honda, it's like
it's safe.
It's very safe. Yeah.
It's safe. Yeah. All right. Well, next up we have very unusual in that it was written solely by Woody. And as we talked about in our Woody episode, he didn't really write a lot of songs by himself. So this one is called Small World.
I sat and watched the crowds in London. I know each road by name. Today the streets are cold and empty, 'cause no one likes the rain. I soon lost count of all the cars that burn so bright outside the bars. Deserted streets and burning shells, familiar shops I know so well. Today the birds no longer twitter, the words don't make it true.
Small World. What do you think, Polly?
It's great. I think it's really good that Disney went and built that a ride for them for this song. But No, I mean, it's I don't like it as much as other stuff. It's got a bit of an anthemic feel to it, and a bit chanty and in the chorus. And yeah, it's, good on him for trying. I think the intent and the feel of the song is admirable, but yeah, it just doesn't do a great deal for me.
See, and the things that you don't like are the things that I like about it. And I really, really like the funky bass. It reminds me of a Talking Heads song. I do like the kind of anthemic or chanty nature of it. That's fun to me. Yeah, that kind of a song. It's worth noting here that Woody's wife, Siobhan, is singing backing vocals on this one.
And for the 11th song on the album, we have yet another Chaz Smash composition. It is Death of a Rude Boy.
It was the death of a rude boy. He had a certain way with women. He was natty and the men had rhythm. He was known in all kinds of places. He was wicked with names and faces. He was a lover through and through, who might always make time for you. He had his own kind of flavor. He walked like a stepping razor. Man could drop a killer move, never failed to bust a groove.
So there we had Death of a Rude Boy. Not a single, but it was a pre-release giveaway download, and it was released on the 12th of August in 2012. And it's one of the songs produced by Stephen Street. So, Laurie, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm trying to think back to how I felt the first time I heard it. So August 2012, I mean, we were chomping at the bit, waiting for something new from Madness. And so any little crumbs that they threw us, we went crazy over. I remember thinking I did kind of like this one. It reminds me, I think, a little bit more of some of their, I guess, more classic music in some respects. Also, I think this is the only one on the album that Carl sings on. Is my recollection correct on that, Polly?
I think so. I think you're right.
Which is really kind of a shame, I mean, the ones where they're sharing lead singing duties, I think, have been stronger albums, in my opinion. I would have liked to hear more of Carl on this album than just this one song. But I digress. What do you think of Death of a Rude Boy?
I do like the song. There is one peculiar element of it in the song structure, and that's that this has a bit of a driving, upbeat tempo for all of the song's verses, and then it goes into the chorus being the death of a rude boy, where the pacing is really stretched right out and the chorus is dragged out. Now that in and of itself makes it a little bit different, because it's far easier songwriting to go from a low tempo delivery in verses and then pick it up in the chorus, compared to the other way, which is, generally speaking, if you slow the tempo of the song delivery down on a chorus, is generally done only when there's harmonies happening. So it's sort of a bit lilting, and it kind of bottoms out a little bit in the chorus. So that's my only thing close to a criticism. Aside from that, I think it's actually pretty good.
Holly, maybe you could explain for our listeners, because as an American, I wasn't aware of the term rude boy, right? And we're not talking about a young man who has bad manners, right? What exactly is a rude boy?
Well, so that was, taken from the late 50s, mid 60s, inner city Jamaica, when they were going through such dire economic times. that there's many people left to fend for themselves, either up to shenanigans on the streets, low-level crime, things like that. So rude boy became almost like a generic term for young men up to no good. Now that developed into a rude boy sort of style as well, so it transitioned into a look, way of wearing your hat, things to make other rude boys, make yourself easily identified by other rude boys. And so that persisted. And of course, when the British ska revival or two-tone era crept up, we already had skinheads, the skinhead movement in the UK, and it was easily adapted by them, and the term just stuck as well to urban youth.
I guess the equivalency, although it would be a couple decades apart, punk, right? It used to be,
sure.
If you'd said somebody was a punk, it used to mean, that they're a troublemaker, they're up to no good, right? And then it started to kind of become associated with a particular scene, with a particular music scene, particular fashion scene. And I think maybe rude boy was kind of the same thing, where maybe it started off having one connotation and then kind of melded with the music, the fashion of the Jamaican ska scene, and kind of became to identify with that.
I think you've got it just right.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Polly.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're coming to what are called the bonus tracks. Now, this is a little bit of a misnomer because these tracks appear on all versions of the album, but they're nonetheless promoted as bonus tracks. So the first of the bonus tracks, this was written by Mike Barson with Suggs. It's called Powder Blue.
On and off the sofa, the candle's nearly out. Our pop star friends have all gone home, or maybe just out and about. And I can feel you dreaming, and I'm dreaming of you. Together slowly drifting into the powder blue, into the powder blue, into the powder blue, into the powder blue. La 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 la.
Okay, so that's Powder Blue with backing vocals by Vanessa Quinones, who's the lead singer of Vanessa and the O's. How do you like Powder Blue?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say about Powder Blue is there's a remarkable amount of similarities between this song and Whiter Shade of Pale. So much so that I would argue either it's a straight out homage to the song, or maybe they had listened to it, in close proximity to writing the song or recording the song. But, of course, it first starts out with that very, very ominous organ opening. And, then transitions into that, very same pace, very same thematically. And, it's not lost on me either that the two song titles are very similar. Powder Blue, almost indicating a pastel type of color, Whiter Shade of Pale. I just think there's an awful lot going on between Powder Blue and the Procol Harum song. And, given that I'm not that much of a fan of Whiter Shade of Pale, I'd say by extension, not that much of a fan of this song.
And that's so interesting because I've never made that connection between Procol Harum and Madness. Never would have made that connection in a million years. So now you realize when we're done, I'm going to go listen to that and listen to them back to back again. It's a very pretty song. I don't know that it's one that I would go out of my way to listen to, but it is notable because I think it's the one track on the album on which Clive Langer shares a producer credit. So, as we know, Clive Langer and Alan Winstanley produced a lot of the band's earlier work. So this is like, I guess he's coming back and doing this as a one-off with Charlie Andrew. So it's a pretty song. I'm starting to feel like they're all over the map with this album. You know what I mean? And I think I don't know if it's because of all the different producers. I'm not picking up on any kind of theme. It really kind of seems like, but as you have said before, Polly, in some of our other episodes, let's throw it all up at the wall and see what sticks. And that kind of feels like what they're doing here on this album. It's really not very cohesive.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. There's an awful lot of different styles and dabbling in different genres on this.
And, sometimes it works. Sometimes not so much.
Yeah. That's good podcast right there when I say, yeah. So the 13th song, that would be Black and Blue. It is written by Mike Barson. And another one produced by Charlie Andrew. Let's take a listen.
Hanging around your house again, I feel so out of place. Going to the corner shop, the man from outer space. Seems so very long ago when we stayed up through the night. Like those days would never end, and all them things won't never mend. And I'm feeling kind of black and blue, but the fresh winds on the street, free falling through the years, but I'm still on my feet.
All right then, Laurie.
Mm.
Let the people know what you think about Black and Blue.
Well, both of these color related tracks, Powder Blue and Black and Blue, they kind of feel like throwaways to me. I mean, they feel like they could have been B-sides, and maybe that's why they labeled them quote unquote bonus tracks. It's just okay. It's not very memorable for me. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. It's a very Madness-esque song. So it's not surprising it made it on. Maybe there's some merit to your theory about this. Maybe could have been intended for a B-side. But, it's very Mike Barson. He's a prolific writer. It's no surprise that, stylistically, it's got him written all over it. But like you said, it's fairly standard, not unlike So Alive. It's let's write a Madness song, and they did, but it's good, but not great.
So we actually do agree on this one then.
I think we do.
So finally we have My Girl 2, the Clive Langer and Charlie Andrew mix, which, as you might guess, is produced by Clive Langer and Charlie Andrew. Let's listen.
We see, ya, ya, da, da. We see, ya, ya, da, da. Oh, lately, I've been wondering about you and the things you do. I'm in love, but you drive me mad, be so sad to be losing you. But last night, when we had that fight in your car, you left me in that bar. I see her talking to her friends, acting like she just don't care. She got flair, and the way she moves with such grace, like she owns the space. She's so fine, she looks so cool, got no time, and nobody's fool. 'Cause my girl, she don't read books. My girl, she give me daddy, so much.
How you like this one, Polly?
I do like the mix. I'm not going to claim I like it better than the lead off album track. Would that be what we would refer to it? Or maybe the intended version for the album? It's definitely got the bass up front, a little bit higher level on some of the keyboards, but aside from that, not radically different. I think it may be pretty heavy on, I think that's a drum machine. I
Yeah.
don't think that's Woody. But yeah, it's not radically different enough. I can't say I love the original song and then say, well, I don't like this. It's different. But yeah, I'm fine with it.
I think that drum machine kills it for me. I mean, I like this one even less than the original. So there you have it. So that brings us to the end of the album. And so this is where we kind of talk about our general feelings about the album. Where is we see ya ya da da we see ya ya da da in the Madness repertoire for you? I mean,
well, to use a sort of parallel from a different medium, we as consumers of the arts are very comfortable breaking down an actor's portfolio into different eras. We're a little less eager to do that with music. We want everything sounding like 1979 when it comes to Madness. And I don't think that's particularly fair for Madness. I don't think it's particularly fair for any other artist. The album is a little bit disjointed, but so far as in the hierarchy of other Madness albums, this came along at year 33 to 35, something like that. And it's capable of harkening back a little bit to the original sound of Madness. It is capable of harkening back to the middle period of Madness, but it's essentially a grown-up adult Madness album. And if we were talking about, Paul Newman, we would be constantly referring to his Cool Hand Luke phase when he did so many great things later on in life too. So I'm fine with it. I've learned over the years that if you've got one of your favorite childhood artists putting out an album and you get 6 out of 12 tracks that you really, really like, it's a huge win. And for me, I'm really thinking that there's 7 or 8 songs on this album that I'm really quite fond of. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it and put a big W up there and say they can continue to do albums of this quality, and I'm going to continue to love it.
I don't think it's necessarily fair to say, we want them to go back to the 1979 sound. That's not true of all of us. I mean, I adored Norton Folgate, and Norton Folgate was nothing like their original sound. I don't know. I mean, it feels kind of like The Leftovers. It feels like, we got all the good stuff with Norton Folgate, and now it kind of feels like we're getting stuff that's just kind of so-so. And again, I realize I'm probably being unfairly harsh because the previous album was just so freaking good that I think anything afterwards, I'm going to be disappointed by. As I said earlier, I think I'd like to see more of Carl. I think, I think he needs to come to the forefront a little bit more. I'd also like to see some kind of cohesion. Like I said, it's just all over the map. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many producers in the studio. One extreme to the other with my love for the band, right? Going, oh my gosh, Norton Folgate, Angels on High, to this. Maybe I'm being unfairly harsh. I recognize that. Now, Polly, what's your favorite track off the album? And what's your least favorite track?
Oh, wow. So I forgot how we do this. So I didn't think of my least favorite track, but I would gather probably my least favorite track is going to be Powder Blue. But my favorite track is definitely going to be Leon. The chorus of it, this big, bold, shouting almost chorus. Very different for the boys, but works really, really well. I mean, I think that the song in itself has a great deal going on for us. Nick and Woody could have given it to a million other people and it would have been fantastic. And thankfully we just got to hear our boys do it. So yeah, I'm just right in love with that song. And I'd argue it's probably one of my more favorite Madness songs, maybe even ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a good song. It's definitely, I think, one of the best songs on the album. I'll give you that.
What about you, Laurie? Go ahead. Tell me your favorite.
I've been back and forth on this. I think my favorite's probably going to be How Can I Tell You? I think it has to be, just because that's the one that I just keep coming back to and singing. Least favorite is going to be Misery. And I got to tell you, it's disappointing for me too, because when somebody mentions Misery by Madness, of course, the first thing I think of is Shame and Scandal. Oh, misery, shame and scandal in the family. And that one I love, right? So it always gets my hopes up for a second. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, this is the one I don't like. So, Polly, you chose our closing song this week. Can you tell us what you chose?
So, from the Mad Not Cancer tribute to Madness by the Specialized Project, I chose My Girl 2, the version covered by Matt Neal and Horace Panter, the Honorable Horace Panter. I just love this version, and I do have a fondness for Matt Neal, and nothing but the utmost respect for Horace Panter. So it was an easy pick for me. Horace Panter, of course, being the bass player for the Specials.
Thank you again for listening, everybody. It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye for me. Go get a beer, Stateside Madness.
Lately, I've been wondering about you and the things you do. I'm in love, but you drive me mad, so sad to be losing you. But last night, when we had that fight in your car, left me at the bar. I see her talking to her friends, acting like she just don't care. She has flair, and how she moves with such grace, like she owns her space so fine. She looks so cool and on time. Nobody's fooling my girl. She don't read books on my girl. She gives dirty looks. I'm going to be what she wants me to be. I'm a man doing all I can. I'm my girl, heads above the rest. With my girl, she shot her best. We see see ya ya da da. We see see ya ya. We see see ya ya da da. We see see ya ya. So cool, but there's no doubt.